Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is probably one of the most recognizable film trilogies to ever exist, if not then the most recognizable, grossing over $2 billion in total in the original runs of the films, and Spider-Man 2 in particular being hailed as one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. That being said, following the critical failure of Spider-Man 3, a lot of people were obviously unhappy. They obviously just couldn't handle whatever this is. Despite that though, a Spider-Man 4 was still desperately asked for. Thankfully, Sony listened, and on May 6, 2011, Spider-Man 4 was released to the public. In an alternate timeline. In our timeline, Sony announced Spider-Man 4 for a May 6, 2011 release date, but the movie was eventually cancelled, and instead, on July 3, 2012, we got the Amazing Spider-Man reboot starring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. For better or for worse, I won't say. Not now, at least, for the safety of myself and my family. With that context out of the way, though, you've obviously read the title, so I think it's reasonable to assume you understand that today I want to talk about whether or not we actually need Spider-Man 4. Raimi's Spider-Man 4, obviously. MCU Spider-Man 4 is clearly needed, I don't think we need to debate that, but I think there's definitely a debate when it comes to Raimi's universe, especially because I consider the ending of Spider-Man 3 to be pretty conclusive and damn near perfect. Speaking of Spidey 3's ending, that's what I'm going to be talking about today, to decide if we actually need Spider-Man 4 or not. I'd like to analyze 3's ending and explain my personal thoughts on it. Final note I'll add is when I say 3's ending, I obviously mean after Venom and Sandman have been defeated, when Peter finally confronts Marco about his uncle's death. That being said, 3's ending is different. What do I mean by different? Well, Spider-Man 1 and 2 both have a triumphant, climactic ending, seeing Peter swing through New York while he either monologues in Spider-Man 1, or in Spider-Man 2, a shot of MJ looking off into the distance, worrying for Peter's safety. In 3, there is no final swing, there is no monologue, and to be completely honest, I'm a big fan of this choice. I know people love the final swings, and so do I, to be totally honest with you, but Spider-Man 3 is already a massive mess of a movie for so many other reasons. I think the ending here works far better than a final swing would ever. A final swing would just feel a bit insensitive, if that's the right word, mainly because you just had the death of the character who we followed for 3 entire movies, and to end on a final swing showing how Peter is going to be Spider-Man again would just be a bit redundant, because yeah, we already know Peter is going to wear the suit again, whether he likes it or not, it's what he has to do. This ending is far more unique, not just because we don't get a final swing, but we actually see Harry's death linger on MJ and Peter for a bit, and see how they deal with his grief. Granted, it's not much, but it's still there. We get a funeral shot similar to Norman's in Spider-Man 1, and then the film ends with Peter and MJ tightly in each other's arms, comforting each other after the death of their best friend. I also want to speak on Peter's talk with Flint. It's a pretty solid way to give Peter a resolution to Uncle Ben's death, the thing he's been dealing with for the entire trilogy. I know there's some debate on how this was handled, but personally, I think it was fine. Either way, it still means the Uncle Ben stuff is completely done, and there's pretty much nowhere else they could really go with it in future films. He's made up with Marco, he's revealed to Aunt May his true position in Ben's death, he's dealt with the actual loss of Ben already. What else is there to do? Which is a major question for a future Spider-Man 4 as a whole. What do you do? Like, genuinely. Peter's arc and growth as a character has already been wrapped up. Harry's dead, so the Osborns are completely gone. Otto is dead, Flint's character is completely wrapped up too. Now, granted, you could maybe give us a Raimi universe post No Way Home, but still, these characters are all cured, they're not villains anymore. I know Raimi Spider-Man 4 had plans for Vulture, but what about the rest of the cast? Would you put MJ and Peter through more relationship issues? Again? For the 4th time in a row? Raimi's romance plots were the worst parts of the films, and you're telling me he should do it again? We know Black Cat would have been in the film too, so she'd most likely be involved with it. I just don't really get wanting to see Peter go through more relationship issues for the 4th time in a row, instead of him being happily married to MJ, which is where we reach the next idea, a Logan-styled Spider-Man 4. And once again, while I'm not as opposed to the idea, is it really necessary? I mean, sure, maybe you could introduce Miles or even Mayday, but do we genuinely need it? I mean, keep in mind, movies aren't just free to make, they take a lot of time and effort. Personally, I'd rather see that effort put into an MCU Spider-Man 4 or even a TASM 3. My main point is, I feel like a Spider-Man 4 would just be a bit excessive in my opinion. Would it be cool? Absolutely. Would I support it in theaters? Fuck yeah, because I love Spider-Man and want to support whatever this franchise releases as hard as I can. As long as it's, you know, good. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose my mind over this, because it's just not a film I need to see. That universe reached its conclusion, and in my opinion, despite the major flaws of Spider-Man 3, it was a pretty damn good ending. It's time to let that world rest. We know he's happy with MJ, we know he's felt all of the ramifications from Ben's death and grown from it. Sure, we could kill off May, but I don't think there's much character growth left to see from that. At least not compared to her death in, say, Insomniac Spider-Man or the MCU, where those Peters hadn't lost or had suffered as much death as Raimi's Peter had by the time their Mays died. I mean, seriously, this Peter has gone through and seen so much death for some reason. Uncle Ben, Flint's partner, Norman, Otto, Eddie, Harry, etc. There might be some others I'm forgetting, but my point is I don't think May's death would phase this Peter as much as it would with Tom's Peter or Insomniac's Peter. Obviously, he'd still be sad and still grieve her, but I don't think he'd face as much personal growth from it. I can go on and on about why I don't think Spider-Man 4 is needed, but like I said before, my main point is that I think if a Raimi Spider-Man 4 were to happen, it just wouldn't be necessary. It's time to stop clinging onto the past and move on, which is something I think a lot of companies these days need to learn with how many reboots, revivals, remakes, etc. we get every year, but that's a completely different topic for a completely different video. But you see where I'm coming from. At the very least, the universe will always be there, and you can always watch it whenever you need to, but I prefer we start focusing on the modern pieces of media we have, such as Tom Holland's trilogy, which is actually going to get a 4th installment. I mean, Sony needs to make some money from the live-action films one way or another. Or the Spider-Verse movies, which are mind-blowing pieces of media and deserve every piece of love they get. This video doesn't exist to say stop asking for a Raimi Spider-Man 4, but more so to say it's fine to want a Spider-Man 4, and I'm not saying I wouldn't want one either, but you gotta ask yourself, do we really need it? That's pretty much all I have to say on this matter. If you enjoyed, give the video a like, share with people you know, yada yada, all that stuff. If you have any thoughts, feedback, etc., please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.